When the court resumed again in the late afternoon, a large bear of a man filled the entire witness chair. I drew in my breath. Blacksmith Nicholas. In the settlement, the sight of him always frightened me near to death. His soot-black hands were the size of bear paws beneath his rolled-up sleeves. His red arms were as big around as tree limbs, but it was his fierce eyes that truly seemed to burn holes straight through your skin if you caused him to turn them in your direction. Whenever he came to visit my pa, I sat in terror of him, but Augustus Root didn't seem to feel even a shiver of fear after the blacksmith was sworn to tell the truth. He strolled easily toward him. "Tell us, if you would, Mr. Nicholas," he started in a voice that was almost cheerful, as if he was asking Mr. Nicholas to tea. "How did you come to make the acquaintance of the Indian who is before us today, the one who is called—" "Made him a tomahawk," the blacksmith's voice rumbled, and he struck his finger in Indian John's direction before Mr. Root even finished all his words. "A tomahawk," Mr. Root repeated slowly. "Yes, sir." "And why did you make a tomahawk for this particular Indian?" Mr. Nichols crossed his arms and stared at the lawyer. "You seen many blacksmiths among the savages, Mr. Root?" Not a soul in the crowd dared to laugh. Augustus Root smiled uncomfortably. "No, of course not. Of course not. Quite so." He straightened the fancy white cloth tied around his neck and smoothed the front of his yellow silk vest before speaking again. I hid a small grin behind my hand. "Could you perhaps describe the tomahawk you made for Indian John?" he said, gesturing with one arm. "Tell the jury, well, exactly how it was made." Mr. Nichols stared at the lawyer as if he had asked an even more thick-skulled question. "What a tomahawk is made of," he repeated. "Let me remind everyone," the judge interrupted, "that this is a court of law, and all questions are to be answered to the best of one's knowledge." Seemed to me that the blacksmith grew even larger as he drew back his anvil-sized shoulders and turned his fierce eyes upon the judge. "Mr. Nichols, could you explain how the tomahawk was made exactly?" "Just for the jury," the lawyer hurried on. There was a long, terrifying wait before Nichols turned toward the crowd again and answered the lawyer. "It was a pipe tomahawk, iron blade with a steel edge for sharpness," he added in a voice that sent a chill clear through my bones. "And you made only the blade, am I correct?" "Yes." "What about the haft, the handle? What did it look like?" "Wood." "Any decoration that you recall?" "Yes." Augustus Root stopped and rubbed his eyes as if he was growing weary of asking question after question without getting anything more than a yes or no. "Could you perhaps describe it?" he said, sighing loudly. "There was marks scorched all along the wood of the haft." Mr. Nichols moved his hands. "Dark and light stripes. Made by the Indian?" "Made by some Indian," the blacksmith rumbled. "I don't know who." "Anything else? Other decorations?" "One piece of trade silver in the shape of a diamond set in the wood." The lawyer glanced out at the crowd and said in a louder voice, as if he wanted all of us to hear him, "Do you think, Mr. Nichols, you could recognize the tomahawk you worked on if it was shown to you again?" My heart thudded in my chest. "Yes," Mr. Nichols said, folding his arms, "I would." Grinning a little to himself, Augustus Root walked quickly to his chair to fetch something. In an anxious rush of air, everyone around us stood up to see it. I have seen the tomahawk of 10 claws many times. He wore it proudly, tucked in the woven red sash tied around his waist. It is handsome. As the Geechee Mukuman holds it overhead, I see the flash of silver and the handle, half as long as a man's arm, circled with bands of black and brown, like a striped insect that hums over summer fields. But I know, too, that the tomahawk of 10 claws flies on angry wings when it is thrown. I remember how 10 Claws was too much mad, how he took his tomahawk one night and plunged into the dark and snow, and we called out to him, "Becca, Becca, stop!" But he would listen to no one.